We're going to be starting our main segment of Twig here today with Reverend David Petty from Crossfire Faith and Gaming. We're going to be talking about their camp ministry for our main segment for today, all the exciting things that they've had going on. This is year 3, right? Is this the 3rd year?
Yeah, year 3.
So that's super exciting to get into the 3rd year. You've gotten past the sophomore slump. You did it. You've gotten into the 3rd, whatever it is. And I think that the 3rd album is always a good one. So we've got some good stuff ahead for y'all. Talk to me a little bit about the very beginning of this, some of the origin, or maybe since this will be edited for later, give us the rundown on what is Crossfire first and foremost.
Sure. So Crossfire is an online faith community and kind of a ministry. We do a Discord stream or a Discord channel, Discord server, very similar to what you do here, a Nerd Pastor Nate and the Checkpoint folks, but just a little bit different. Our biggest difference, I think, is that one of the main things that we do is we put on summer camps for youth, junior high and senior high. We put on summer camps across the Mountain Sky region, which is kind of Colorado up to Montana. And eventually we're hoping to expand that into some different areas. But for now, that's where we're at. And so, forever ago, we started Crossfire Faith and Gaming with the idea that, we needed some nerd ministry. And I didn't see a lot of nerd ministry out there back in 2017. This was before COVID, so nobody knew that internet churches could be a thing. But we started that and started exploring what it looked like. Eventually it became a Facebook group, then it became a Discord channel or a Discord server, and then it eventually became summer camps. So we found a lot of success and a lot of outreach and a lot of good ministry opportunities in doing our summer camps. And so that's what we're doing now, mainly, as our focus is summer camps.
So where did the camp ministry thing really rise out of? I know you said it was a couple steps down the line, but what do you think it was that germinated that?
Yeah, I think, a long time ago, we talked about it would be neat to try and take this online community and find a way to get it together in person, very similar to the online communities that then have conventions. You've got people playing Minecraft, they get together for a Minecraft convention. You got people that are all over YouTube, they get together for a YouTube convention. The challenge is, when you've got a very dispersed group and it's a relatively small group, how do you get a few hundred people from across the country to eventually come together? So, we didn't really have a good way to gather that group. But then eventually we started talking about the possibility of running like a camp or something like that. And really it was out of seeing my own children and some of their friends say about church summer camps and say, I don't really want to go to summer camp. I'd rather stay home and play video games with my friends. And so I started thinking, well, what if you could do both? What if you could go to summer camp and play video games with your friends? And what if it was kind of a summer camp LAN party for those of you that are older enough to remember LAN parties? So we started playing with that idea. We got hooked up with the Boulder Spirit Foundation, which exists from the sale of a Methodist church camp up in Montana. They loved the idea and they said, hey, we'd love to see this flourish. So we started doing it, and we did it in Denver 3 years ago. And then last year we did it in Denver and Bozeman and Billings. And then this year we're doing Colorado Springs, Denver, Loveland, Fort Collins, Bozeman, and Billings. And I think we're going to do those Bozeman and Billings a couple times. So yeah, that's the goal there, is to bring this LAN party experience to people that have sometimes never played games together in person. Kids have played Fortnite together, they've played Rocket League together, they've played Minecraft together, maybe they've played Call of Duty together, but rarely ever in person. And for those of us that are old enough to remember couch co-op games or sitting side by side playing Mario Kart, sitting side by side playing GoldenEye back in the day, we know that there's something to an embodied in-person experience that's hard to replicate in an online experience. So we kind of took that and said, what if we could build a summer camp experience around that concept of in-person and embodied ministry, and then translate the concepts we learned from video games into ministry concepts. So we teach kids about how to be creative, because we believe God is creative. We teach kids about how to deal with toxic behaviors online, and what does Jesus say about how to deal with toxic people, because he had no shortage of that, and how to collaborate and be good team players, how to build communities, all those kinds of things. And so we tie in the scripture along with the games that we're playing and the life lessons that they teach. So that's kind of what we do in 3 to 5 days in our summer camps.
Very cool. That's quite the scale up to get from, just a couple to like 6 this year. And then you said maybe a couple times. So that's exciting.
We also expanded, a couple years ago when we started it 3 years ago. We originally had it in a giant gaming arena that could house 150 people. We had huge visions for it, and we had 10 people, which felt like, maybe a huge failure at the time, but really 10 was a good number to manage. Last year we had between 6 and 12 at each of our camps. And this year we've kind of scaled up our ability to hold a number of people in camps. So this year we have spots for up to 30 people per camp. Each camp will have, I think, 24 Xboxes, 3 Nintendo Switches, 3 PlayStations, and we're going to be playing on those interspersed with some in-person games and some scripture time and some story time. So that's the camp. So it's scaled up quite a bit. And the question is, what's it going to look like this year? Hopefully good.
Yeah, I think that is the iconic crisis with nerd ministry is we never know how big to plan for, because there's the like dreamed reality of Comic-Con where it's just so much like huger than huge. And so it's easier to overshoot than undershoot. And it feels like more often than not overshooting to start and then scaling back into what makes sense so that it can grow. But that's exciting. So talk to me about some
just to
of
give
the, go ahead.
I was going to say that leads into your next question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So talk about some of the highlights there, some of the things that might have come out of these past couple of years that have led towards this growth.
Yeah, I think a quick highlight, last year for our Denver camp, we were gearing up for 12 kids. We ended up only having 6. And at the time we felt like, 6 was just almost not enough to have camp. We were really worried about it going into the week. Like, I don't know, 6 kids, we got 3 counselors, 6 kids. That's just way too many counselors and not enough kids. And what is this going to look like? But those 6 kids got so much out of that camp. They had such a great experience. They built such good bonds with each other. And so it was just wonderful to see that reaffirmation that it's really not about the size of the crowd, but about the depth of the ministry, right? Can you reach one person? And can you reach the next person? And, it's really not, sometimes in church world, I think we get stuck in trying to build big crowds rather than trying to build really deep relationships, trying to build really deep faith. So that was a good affirmation for me to say, no, let's go for depth and not breadth. I don't want 100 people who don't get much out of the camp. I'd rather give 6 people that get a lot out of the camp. So some of the biggest, most memorable moments from the camp are watching kids who have literally never played games in the same room as other people play, in this case, a 3v3 Rocket League, or, play through Super Smash Bros. Tournament where we stack them up on teams and they have stocks and they take them off of each other, and watching the camaraderie and the team building that happens in that room. And then also watching kids who have never experienced anything about the gospel. They've never heard any scripture. Maybe they've even been turned off by church because somebody told them like church is just this thing that's judgy and it's full of old people. And they're getting to know the stories of Jesus. They're getting to understand the stories of God's people. And they're doing it in a way that's comfortable, in a way that's natural for them, rather than saying, go to this place where it's unfamiliar, in this building that looks strange, full of old people singing hymns you don't know. Instead, they get to engage in faith in their own way. And so I think it's a great introduction for people to experience faith, sometimes for the first time.
Yeah. We don't have to go down this road if you don't necessarily want to, but that's my thought process on this whole crisis of like the loneliness epidemic and what we're seeing in young people right now. And like, as a young person myself, like my problem is not my cell phone. And I'm so tired of people telling me that my problem is my cell phone. My problem is that everything is designed to be marketed at me instead of a thing that I can be a part of, instead of like, I can be a part of a small group of friends or a community. And that is what is so edifying, and what should be edifying through the church is like, the church doesn't need to have hundreds of thousands of people sign up for their event so that they can get better sales, so they can partner with Walmart or whatever. Like, we should be funding things through ourselves, that it doesn't matter if it's 6 people. That is going to be the impact that we're going to have, not the numbers that we're trying to reach for some kind of mindless marketing purpose. And so it's centralizing our community aspects, which is, to me, a much more effective way of combating the loneliness epidemic than just blaming technology. Instead, utilize it, adapt it, and turn it into something really exciting.
Absolutely.
So let's turn to that then. Technology is very much a part of this, and this is something that has been working. So why do you think that is? How do you think that gaming is the conduit? What have you seen as far as like the games that are building that camaraderie, or the moments that are happening that you see like the friendship click? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah. I mean, some of it is natural and understandable once you draw the conclusions, right? Like we've been using games to teach stories at camps for generations. It's just, it used to be volleyball or, prisoner in or whatever you call it, or it was, some game we were playing in the pool, or it was capture the flag, but now instead of running around in activities that sometimes are excluding to people who might have differences in ability levels or perhaps differences in natural social interaction levels, instead we've got this activity that is just using technology, right? And so we're still playing games, we're still teaching lessons, we're just doing it in a way that is more natural for people in today's world. And, for those people who can, we are still doing in-person physical things. We're taking them outside, we're still running around for when we can. So it's not just all, 8 hours in person in front of a screen. But I do think that because it's a language that people speak, because it's a place where people enjoy their own kind of comfort level, their guards down a little bit, they're more open to interacting, they're more open to lessons. And then you can take the things that are already built into these games. So a great one is like Overcooked. Overcooked is a game that really requires teamwork. It requires team building. It requires communication. It requires kind of building each other up. You can't start yelling at each other and saying, oh, you idiot, you're not doing it right. And so, how do you then teach that lesson of like, how do we treat one another, which is a natural part of so much of Jesus's message is like, how do we treat one another as human beings, as beloved children of God, and not treat one another as enemies, right? How do we see each other as friends and not enemies? So yeah, we've seen a lot of great stuff through like games like Overcooked. We played Spider Heck, which is a wonderful game, which kind of forces that toxicity. So you say, okay, well, how do you deal with toxicity when you're playing Spider Heck and all of a sudden your spider drops into lava because you got hit with a lightsaber and you're frustrated? We've seen the creative games like Minecraft and Ultimate Chicken Horse, which is a phenomenal family game. If anybody out there is looking for a family game to play with a variety of age levels in their family, or, a variety of skill levels, because even if you're great at games, you might not be great at Ultimate Chicken Horse. Playing games like Rocket League, right, which is like a sports-based game, but it requires, kind of teamwork and team building in that. And then, the things you can do in Minecraft, because it's such a creative game, you can do almost anything in Minecraft, and you can have collaborative building experiences and talk about world building and how, we are part of and this is literally like, hopefully this is not a spoiler for anybody, but this is kind of the message of the Minecraft movie, right? Is like, you can build a world in Minecraft. You can also build a world in the world. And God invites us into world building as people who are co-creators with God of creating the world around us. So how do we create a good world in a place where, perhaps people are trying to create a world that's the most profitable for them? So those are some of the cool lessons we've experienced and taught kids through the use of technology. And it's a natural place for them to get those lessons where, perhaps saying, open up this 1,500 page book and let's read these paragraphs might take a little bit of time before they feel like that's an exciting thing.
Very good. Well, I'm already getting a flood of emails of folks angry about spoiling the Minecraft movie. They were very excited about that one.
I know.
It's all they've been able to think about. It's movie of the summer, blockbuster hit,
And now they know it's about world building. I'm sorry.
It's a big deal. That's great. I love that. And I think that Minecraft is one that has clicked for us as well. I think that is an easy place, not an easy place. It is an effective place to start for anyone wanting to do this kind of work of digital or nerd-based ministry or gaming-based ministry. A realm is so easy to start. A server is a little bit more challenging, but regardless, if you got tech-savvy people, you might be down to explore it. But I found that was a moment that clicked for me of like, love it or leave it with the love languages, like the ability of like gifts of service and doing for someone. There were people that were able to use their gifts and their talent to create things on Minecraft that immediately, as soon as we opened up our realm, were making me things. Like they were making things for Checkpoint and for Nerd Pastor Nay. They were making a church. They were making, like we had one person that tried their darndest to create Wayne Manor, just this humongous Wayne Manor for Batman. And like, it's a thing that people are able to use their time for that doesn't feel like a waste of time, but instead an effective way of loving other people that we just don't get to do too often. So what better way?
And I love that Minecraft, and the way that we use it, we've got a Minecraft server that's running a build called Geyser. So essentially it's both a Bedrock and a Java edition Minecraft world. So you can log in on any console or any PC, either edition of Minecraft. And we have got both a creative and a survival server. And, you know, we took the kids at the camp into the creative world and we had them work on a creative project where they built something. And it was neat because it then is a persistent world, right? They can log in once the week is done. They're done with the Crossfire camp. They can log in and they can see that thing that they built. They can share it with people. They can still exist in that community. You know, unlike an in-person summer camp, like where you're going away to, you know, a mountaintop and you're having a great mountaintop camp experience. And like maybe you're going to stay connected with those kids, but maybe not. But instead we've created this persistent world, and, you know, through our server, you can just continue to interact with people. And so it's been a really, really beautiful thing to see that kind of continuous creativity go forward. So have you been in our Minecraft server yet, Nate?
So I am not a Minecrafter. Like they
not,
got
no
me into
crafting
the
for you.
realm as a means to, like, they wanted a realm, and so I was like, sure, we'll start one. But I have never, like, historically before that played Minecraft, and I am not somebody that seeks it out. But
Okay.
I'm sure it's fascinating. I'm always intrigued by the people that are in this world, even if I am not necessarily one of them. I've got my narrative gaming stuff. I'm not big in the sandbox games, but
Right. Yeah, it is tough, especially for the narrative gamers. We found some struggles there with people who are like, all right, well, I'm done with Minecraft because I beat it. Like, well, no, now go build something. It's like, no, I beat the story.
yeah,
You
I
know,
make little
beat
micro
the Ender
stories
Dragon. I'm done.
where I have like a house to build. And so I will go and I will build a house. And then once that house is done, my little narrative journey is over. But that is very much like my train of thought is I am creating this little micro narrative for myself. My imagination is
Right.
at play. I make the thing. I'm done with the thing. And then a couple months later, somebody will be like, you need to log back in the realm. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go build a house. And then I'll do it again. And the story's over. And
Right. Go find a new adventure. Go build a new house.
That's it.
Nice.
So we already talked a little bit about the overshot in the first year, and that was a lesson that y'all learned. But are there any other notable challenges, or maybe even in the leap from year 2 to year 3 now? What is a lesson you're taking with you going forward?
Yeah, doing stuff's hard. I'm just gonna put that out there. Doing stuff is hard, but also, you know, if you've got a good team around you, you can do really hard stuff and you can do really cool stuff. And I think, you know, doing hard stuff is often worthwhile. You know, when we first started the camp idea, the original idea was that it was going to be an overnight camp at a church. We were going to have to rent a shower trailer. We were going to rent, you know, a shower and bathroom trailer because the church we were at didn't have showers, and we didn't think about that. And it was going to be this whole thing, but it was going to be very challenging and very expensive. And eventually we just kind of pivoted and scaled back and said, okay, what if it's just an in-person day camp? Because all the kids who are registering are coming from that city. And, you know, we pivoted, we totally changed the concept. So that's another thing. I think just being flexible in whatever it is that you're doing, whatever your ministry is or wherever you're serving, you know, you're gonna think things are gonna go one way and God will throw you a curveball. And, you know, you just adapt and you change. But good ministry is good ministry, and it's worth doing. Other lessons, I think, you know, yeah, really be flexible is probably the biggest thing that we've learned. You know, there have been almost every single day, almost every single camp, there's been something that didn't go the way that we expected it would. You know, the first year, like I mentioned, you know, we didn't do the overnight camp thing. We totally pivoted and that worked well. The second year, everything was going great, except that the church that we were at that said, yes, we've got great high-speed internet. And when I was there and I tested it, it was great. That didn't work. And it like their internet infrastructure just did not work for us. So we literally had to go out and buy a new router and set up our own mini network to then connect into their network. And that was a whole learning experience. And then day 3, literally Minecraft updated their server. Minecraft servers updated, which then meant that the geyser build that we were using needed to update, which meant that the client sides needed to update. And it was a whole thing that like that entire day we couldn't play Minecraft because the server had updated. So, you know, we were flexible again. We totally changed. We totally pivoted. And I would say, you know, there's been a number of times that it's like, you cannot be rigid in trying to do ministry because it's just going to take, you know, some creativity and some stick-to-itiveness to just come up with a new creative way to do the thing you're trying to do when your plans don't go according to plan.
There you go. I think that's a lesson anybody can take with them, regardless of if you're called to gaming and nerd ministry or just any form of ministry or any kind of anything. I think that people that want to do big stuff or create community or engage people, that is something you need to know and need to figure out for yourself.
Just life, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes life doesn't go the way you want and you got to adjust.
Yeah. Before the recording of this, I talked about my daughter's daycare closing, and now we got to figure out life with a kid that's going to be around until we get more daycare. So You
Yeah.
manage. You do.
I mean, we all lived through COVID, right? Like COVID
Right.
happened and totally changed every plan that we ever had. And we figured it out.
We figured it out and we keep on doing it. Well, as we close up this segment, how can people support you or join alongside you or actually come to the camp or volunteer for the camp? What's the best way for folks to get involved with Crossfire Camps?
Yeah. So the really easy thing is, crossfire.camp is our domain name. If you go to crossfire.camp, then you'll see all of the information about our summer camps, all of the information about the different weeks that we're going to be there. If you click on the find out more, there's also a button at the top for people to donate. If they want to donate of their time, they can contact me and they can let me know if they're in the area and they want to come swing by and help out, or, financial donations. This year we're charging money for the camps. Last year they were free. We're trying to figure out how to make our budget work and all that kind of stuff. But it's about $100 per camper. And so if people want to donate money to help support a camper or sponsor a camper, they can click that donate button and donate $100 and that'll sponsor an entire camper. So that's a wonderful way. And then, yeah, if you've got youth that live in the area, junior high and senior high youth that are in the Front Range area, Colorado Springs all the way to Fort Collins or up in Montana, or even if they just want to fly into Denver and come attend the camp, let us know. And you can do that and you can register for camps on the website there as well at crossfire.camp. So that's probably the easiest way to support Crossfire Camps and attend Crossfire Camps is all the info there at crossfire.camp. And obviously, even if you can't do all those things, you can keep us in your prayers. We're going to do all these camps. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be different, but stuff's going to not go the way we think. And we would love to have your prayers and praying for us as we change and as we adapt and figure out how to move forward in those changes. So those are probably the best ways you can support us.
Wonderful. Well, that'll wrap our main segment here. So thank you for being on the show and appreciate you sharing with us about Crossfire Camps.
Yeah, thank you so much.